Um, I guess the meeting has started. The webinar has started. Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We'll wait a couple of minutes just for people to come in. Usually, it's very common that people are late. But my name is Tõnis Jõgeva. I'm from 1Office. We do accounting, legal services, company formation in Finland, but we also operate in Sweden, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and in the UK. So we are an international company that expanded from Estonia originally. And I'm also here in Estonia, in the capital Tallinn, doing this webinar. With me, you have Klas Blomqvist from Verde Consulting. He's the main star of today. He's going to explain the main strategies and what to consider when entering the Finnish market. So Klas, a little bit about you. How would you introduce yourself? And good morning to you, Klas.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, my name is Klas Blomqvist. I'm a Finnish citizen and I have a very Swedish name as well. Yes, I'm a business consultant and actually a business developer and focusing on the Nordics, Finland, Sweden, Norway, and Denmark. Everything which is linked to the Nordics. And then I also I have clients in the industry, Swedish, Norwegian, and Finnish clients. So I'm very much into industrial business, but also having different tasks, for example, in the energy segment and some other lobbying tasks. Nice to meet you, everybody. I cannot see anybody's face, but hello anyway.
Yeah, the webinar has been set up in a way that people cannot randomly step in, so to say. So we would have our own flow. But the idea of today's webinar is to go into mainly the strategies that one can use to actually be successful in the Finnish market. Of course, it's a very base level general thing that would be useful for you to know if you're thinking of entering the Swedish market, whether you already have some business in your home country or you want to start fresh. There are certain things to consider, and Klas will nicely explain what those things are. And from my end, from 1Office end, I'll just add the legal aspects, a little bit about taxation, what to do, what to know, what kind of obligations you might get into. So those are also very crucial for you to know. But yeah, again, the focus will be, because what I've seen like very much is that people go into Finland, they maybe open a company, and then the question is like, okay, what next? Where can I get the customer? Or how could I approach a customer? Those kind of questions are things that I directly cannot answer because each industry has its own maybe rules or just commonalities. And I think that's where Klas expertise comes in nicely. So enough about the introductions. I'll share my screen and open the slides. Let's see. The screen should be visible now. And let's do this. View full screen. And here we are. So, Klas, if you can see, then others can see.
Yes, I can see.
That's great. That's great. So trends and opportunities in Finland, Finland's business landscape, our pictures, and let's go into the first slide. So the overall business environment in Finland, just some nice words about the country. It features a reliable governance. We talked about with Klas that although the governments change and there's a lot of commotion and news always when the governments change that wanted to do some different things, going to different direction, then if we look historically, it's been very gradual, kind of same strategy for the government. So it's very, very stable government. And it shares a lot of similarities with other Nordic countries into which Klas will go into. It has metropolitan areas, not only Helsinki, but some other metropolitan areas. It features two languages, main languages, Swedish and Finnish, and overall has strong ties with the Nordic countries and EU overall. So that's the background. So, Klas, maybe the first thing that I would like to ask, or maybe you can expand on that, is that what metropolitan areas are we talking about except Finland, except Helsinki? I think Helsinki is known to many, but yeah, what other metropolitan regions you have in Finland that are relevant to businesses entering there? Like, what kind of specific industries are common to those metropolitan areas?
Yes, thank you. I would say that first Helsinki, Tampere. Tampere is there in the south middle and closer to the west coast. And then we have Vaasa. Vaasa, very strong industrial city. There is Wärtsilä and all the energy, many energy companies. And then in the north we have Oulu. And these are actually, these mentioned Helsinki, Tampere, yes, and not forget Turku, which is
Turku,
the former capital of Finland. It's a fairly big city. So it's Helsinki, Tampere, Turku, Oulu, and Vaasa are the main cities.
Is there any? I know in Turku, for example, there's like this ship construction. Maybe about Oulu, I've heard about like healthcare companies there. What about like Tampere, Helsinki? Do you see some commonalities? Like what kind of businesses tend to go into those metropolitan areas, or like why should you go there specifically? Is there like a strong industry that's there?
Yeah, I would say that Helsinki is absolutely the biggest economical area, the grand Helsinki area. But Tampere, for example, you mentioned is very much technology hub in Finland. There are a lot of companies and headquarters there, and there is also very strong education hub.
Yeah, last year I went to this Tampere subcontractor fair, and I saw a lot of like different companies there, specifically related to technology, robotics, things like that. And yeah, it's a nice big city in a sense. There's a lot of like business traction there, it seemed to me, in Tampere.
Yes, and just for information, the Tampere subcontracting fair is in this month. It's in the end of this month. It's called Alihankinta 2024. Alihankinta 2024. If you have it's a very good place to create contacts if you are in the technology field.
Yeah, definitely, I recommend going there. Probably it's hard to find accommodation right now, but I think for visitors there's no tickets. You can just browse around, and it was quite fun last year. Now, related to Finland, strong Nordic ties, but also this recent NATO membership. How does that change the landscape, the business landscape? I mean, the NATO membership, probably a lot of like military contracts are renewed, added, businesses coming in. Do you see that as well?
Yes, definitely. And there are the ties between Sweden and Norway, for example, has been tight since the former times. But the NATO membership, of course, strengthened it, and it's let's say diminishing the threshold for the investments in Finland, and we haven't seen yet the result, but we will see it. And now we have been a bit in a recession in Finland, but that can be measured afterwards. But I can clearly see because I'm working with the Nordic ties that the NATO membership has an effect.
Also I was thinking of asking about like the energy sector. the business environment. Like I know Finland is strong on nuclear power. That involves a lot of, again, technology. And you said you are quite involved in the energy sector. Do you see that changing? I mean, Germany closed a lot of their nuclear facilities. What about Finland? Are you expanding on nuclear, on the energy, or is it like going for more green solutions?
Yeah, it's more. Finland is has a strong agenda when it comes to the carbon neutrality. It should be a carbon neutrality country in 2035. That is the strictest, I think, the strictest target in Europe at the moment. But Finland has very good electrical grid, and then we are about to build up the wind power offshore farms there in the western Finland, western part in the Botnian Bay, and also north of Åland. So Finland is very good because we have a good grid and a lot of electricity. The electricity price level is very good and promising. So that means that in Finland can be very strong in the future hydrogen development.
Yeah, for example, related to energy, I also have had a couple of customers come in just recently to whom we opened a company, and they use the company to get licensing for solar panel like areas. And what they do is they eventually they build up the infrastructure under that legal entity that we created, and they don't actually have any business activity other than building it up. And later, when it's ready, then they sell the business along with its infrastructure to some, I don't know, energy service provider or something like that. So I've seen that related to solar power, not seen wind generated power, nuclear power. I haven't seen either because I guess those are very, very big projects, but solar I've seen a lot.
Yeah, I would say that solar is very promising in Finland as well.
There's a lot of land.
It should be a good business case if it's well calculated.
Okay, and final thing about the business environment is the language. As we mentioned, the Swedish and Finnish and Swedish is the main two languages. I think Finnish is the main language, but like 5% of people speak Swedish. What about English or Russian? Like how commonly spoken are those languages? Because from Baltic states, we can see that there are like Russian-speaking people, how easy it is for them to do business in Russian. But again, related to like English, like if somebody wants to come in from United States, Canada, United Kingdom, like English, is it commonly spoken in the country?
Let's say, first of all, everything is all official documents in legal and regulatory documents are in Sweden, Finnish and Swedish. But for example, when it comes to tax authorities and the regulatory environment, you can manage in English very well in Finland. So it seems that the English language is a lingua franca when it comes to let's say investments and so on in Finland or foreign activities in Finland. It's fairly easy to operate in Finland.
Yeah. I've also had that experience that you can do you can kind of communicate in English. But we have in few slides we have a little bit more about the culture, a little bit like which also relates to to English and the languages. So we'll get back to that later on. Now I don't know if you want to add anything about the overall business environment in.
Actually, one pattern with Finland is that the ties with Sweden is very narrow, and the thing is that Sweden is usually some kind of bouncing board for Finnish companies. But on the other hand, Swedish companies there are a lot of Swedish involvement in Finland, in the Finnish industry, when it comes to, let's say, smaller smaller startups, and then also larger companies. So one can say that what flies in Sweden flies elsewhere. And there are these long historical bounds between Sweden and Finland, because Finland was a part of Sweden before 1809. So yeah, that's very good to remember.
Yeah, I hope you don't have any how to say, like, bad feelings about it, that Finland was part of Sweden, that you've healed your relationship in the sense that people don't hold grudges for that history.
No, absolutely not. The world was in a turmoil, but Finland got the independence, and Finland and Norway actually has the same kind of history, because both countries were under Sweden. And we must also remember that even if we were part of Russia, we had the Swedish law in Finland since 1809 until the independence to 1917.
Okay, but let's go into about the current economic situation. Just like what's going on right now. We've seen like a slight improvement in 2024. 2023 was like a slight recession. GDP went down. It's been leveling now, and there is a forecast of like a slight increase. But I guess this characterizes the whole region. Also across Europe, we can see similar trends. So Finland doesn't really stand out in a sense of like economic growth right now. It's similar across the board. To me, it feels like this way, as far as I can see the statistics. Although inflation is quite good, quite normal compared to some countries that I've heard about, specifically Estonia, where I'm located. Unemployment, although there was a recession, still very like same level. So people are engaged in the business environment. And yeah, the public debt that has been, I think, around 80% for quite some time now, and we haven't seen like big changes there as well. But what is interesting here, this is like some information that Plus gave to me, is the industry sizes in the GDP, and we can see like this metal industry is 37% and so on, chemical industry 26%. So we can see like heavy industries dominating Finland, which I consider like real industries, real value providing industries. So you do a lot of like you're valuing up your core kind of raw materials, whether it's wood or metal or whatever. So I guess the first question overall, plus to you, is like, how does Finland compare to Sweden right now, or even Norway, Denmark, the other Nordic countries, in terms of the current economic data? Is it better? Is it worse? What do you feel?
Yeah, let's start with the building industry. That is a bit, it's the same in Norway, Sweden, and Finland. It has been very, very low at the moment for a couple of years. But we are coming out from the recession soon. Of course, it's the financial market and the war, Ukrainian war, and so on, that might affect a bit thing. But I would say that Finland is a bit of a little brother of Sweden. We have somewhat the same kind of, first of all, energy mix as in Sweden. We have somewhat the same kind of structure, industrial structure. As mentioned here, a metal industry that is very strong, and it also includes the high tech, some part of the high tech industry. And Finland became very known for its metal industry after the Second World War. And then we have the strong chemical industry, as in Sweden as well. And then Finland is known for its forest industry. And then about the, let's say, consumer market and so on, and the it's also very much similar to Sweden, the pattern. As I said, what flies in Sweden flies in Finland. So perhaps this is a comprehensive answer to your question.
Yeah, definitely. But the follow-up, like the industries mentioned here, do you see that there's like what industries would have room for competition, or even not maybe competition, like if metal industry is so big part of the GDP, is that a sign that one could kind of explore that industry, or alternatively, it's so full already with existing companies that you wouldn't need to enter into that market, but rather look for an industry that has still some room for competition. How do you feel about that?
Okay, I would say I have a, let's say, saying which is that the world is not ready yet. So, and competition is always welcome. So this is it's absolutely not so that Finland is full of competitors and so on. There are some patterns that you have to take into account when you come to Finland, but I think we will come to that subject.
Yeah.
I would say that depending on what your company, what you are doing, you listeners, so you have to evaluate that is there a niche, and if you have references from rest of the Europe and the Nordics and so on, so and from your own country, there are possibilities. It's not only the price; it's also the quality and other things which are. There are a lot of foreign activities in Finland.
Yeah, definitely. Again, what we do is we specifically help foreigners. So we do have Finnish customers as well, but we specifically help people outside of Finland to enter Finland. So what I've seen is definitely like this forest industry is something where people enter into. Maybe the barrier to enter there is easier or whatever might be the case, but that's what I've seen. But another interesting thing that I've had a lot of clients entering into mining sector recently, whether it's consultation or just providing services in terms of like exploring new mining sites. Do you have any insights, Klas, what could be the driver of that? Because really people are asking about mining sector in Finland. I've heard about news that some mining sites have been opened or some land has been started to be used for mining, but I don't know if that's a general thing or just some couple of news stories that I've read.
No, that makes sense. That what you say, because there are a lot of different kind of minerals that are interesting in Finland, and it's a bit like the medical industry. It takes a long time to develop that industry and so on. And to get all the approvals for the environment and so on. But for example, the electronic industry, battery industry, and so on needs certain minerals, for example, which exist in the Finnish soil. That is one driver, definitely, and then we have international involvement in Finland also. There are Canadian companies owning mines and developing mines. So of course, when it comes to subcontractor chain, there are certain areas that are interesting. It's a part, of course, of the metal industry.
Yeah, of course. Okay, one final thing. Before we made our plans for this webinar, we talked about like these green initiatives, green technology strategies from the government level. They are taking it seriously. You said 2035 carbon neutral and so on. But people in Finland themselves, like how seriously they take these green plans and strategies? If they choose like a partner, do they even consider whether this partner does things in a green way, or is it just more just on the government level, but the people, businesses themselves, they don't really pay attention to it? How you feel about it?
I would say that the people are very aware of the things. And for example, now when it comes to the building sector and industry, there are coming this environmental, let's say, declarations are needed and required. So the environmental thing, like the carbon neutral targets for the companies, that makes sense to show, and not so that it's only greenwashing, but it's starting to be a competitive edge to have a very good strategy when it comes to the green shift. Myself, I'm working quite much with the green shift, and it's very vital thing for the company to have that in shape, because it's a competitive edge. It's also it's all in all Nordic countries the same, and in Europe.
Yeah. Definitely, it's across the board in Europe. I was just wondering like how businesses on a practical level think about it, but I guess it seems that businesses are also taking it seriously. I would move on to the next slide. Time is flying quite fast. So now we get into the class and Verde consultation, like expertise. Class, this is totally your slide. Maybe just a question like, okay, what is the things to consider in terms of your approach to the market? There are a couple of things here, how you could really practically approach the market, and Claes, maybe you just go through them and give your comments about this slide.
Yes, and without now knowing what you listeners, what you are representing, what field, but we can say roughly that there are 6 different types of approaching a market. This is a very general, generic picture I have made here. Starting with that, if you approach Finland, you might have a dedicated export salesperson focusing on Finland. That is a very good way to start. Then you could also have a local agent. Okay, depending on what it is, for example, if it's a consumer product or some components and things like that, that could be. But then it's very important to select the right agent. If you select the wrong one, you might get into trouble. And then the third one, to have a joint venture, then you, of course, need to have a reliable local partner. It might take some time, but it's typical in business to business, and especially when it comes to service and engineering, as mentioned here. And then you have the fourth arrow there, organic growth, which means that you establish an own company, an OY company in limited company in Finland, and then you start growing through that. You employ people and so on. It's a classic way, but it might be a bit risky in the beginning and expensive.
Plus, I'll just add here that with the organic growth, the establishing a company, that's maybe the one common way that people approach us. Hey, I want a company in Finland. And exactly the next question is like, okay, now that you have the company, what to do next? And then it might turn out that maybe joint venture would have been a better plan, or acquiring an existing company. So you can go ahead with the acquiring of the existing company topic.
And one I just go a bit backwards because if you establish a company, it doesn't cost anything, but it could be later so that you have a joint venture. You take in a partner that is suitable to minimize the risk. But then, of course, to acquire a company, that sometimes in some businesses is very, very, very useful, because then you get a foothold in the market and so on. And then seeking for foreign co-ownership, for example, if you go together with somebody, this is also to have some kind of cooperation with another company that is in synergy with your company. Then you can sell, have a bigger entity. So when it comes to this picture, there are these arrows that goes vertically down. It's very much about handling risks and getting information and making decisions, and also not to forget the networking. This is a very important thing. I put a lot of effort when it comes to the networking, and because if you have the good contacts, it's so easy to get in touch with people, and you get approval of your operation. So and that is in every country the same. So depending on what you do, you have to select things, but to make the homework before, it's very important to gather the right picture of your own possibilities and your strategy and so on.
And Klas, can you help with that homework?
Absolutely, that is my skill and my expertise, because I have a broad network, and I've also the data for this and the possibilities to receive information, depending on the sector, of course. But there is, you can read about things, but there are a lot of information that is under the table, so to say, and you have to feel that what is right for you, and you, let's say, when an entrepreneur, when a company has a vision, and the vision must be, so to say, tested. And this is very important, that because you can be in love with your vision, but it must be tested and before, and that is my expertise when it comes to strategy. And there is also this legal, let's say, and regulatory environment thing, like the type approvals. Are the type approvals needed for your product or service or product? Are they needed or not? In some areas, in some industries, it's very important to have it, because if you get it, then you have a totally different place in the market. But some homework is required.
Okay. Yeah, I will conclude here that these are the things to look out, like the strategy, how to enter. Legally speaking, what 1Office does, we can basically help with each one of these, except, I guess, with the local agent, because that is just a local agent invoicing you. But yeah, talk to Klas if you're not sure what kind of strategy to use to enter the market, and we'll move forward to the next slide, which is kind of the not final, but just like a briefly the considerations one should have, like in terms of this product or service that you are going to promote in Finland, and will it fly there or not? So Klas, again, like what could this? How would you interpret this slide? And yeah, what's your comments here?
Yeah, these attributes here, they are somewhat bound together. Let's link this quality and cost, and it is not necessarily the cost, low cost, which is the most competitive product. It's the ratio between the quality and the cost. This is very very important to remember in Finland. And then of course the differentiation. If you have a service or product, it's important to have it as it would be well fitted for the Finnish society or the Finnish consumer or business environment. So the feeling of the product or service should be made for Finland, and it could be copied from your country to Finland and whatever. And for example, to remember the green shift things and the values and things like that are very important to take into account. And then in Finland, very good service is appreciated generally. And then there comes, of course, the language, local language thing. It might be on the Swedish, on the west coast, it might be very important to also have something in Swedish, and then of course in the Finnish language, because that is the majority of the people. But then the focus down there, actually that bounds every attribute together. But this is how we could interpret this. But the main thing is that the service and the product must be, so to say, made for Finland. It could be a copy of the Swedish or Norwegian or the German version, but anyway, the feeling of the product must be designed.
Yeah. But here what I hear is, it sounds a lot that like market research has to be done, like maybe like a questionnaire, just to evaluate like would your product or service be suitable to Finland, or even interviews, just to test out your solutions for the Finnish market and what the potential customer feels about it, and then based on that make modifications, and then if that's ready, then of course fully enter the market, find the customer, promote the product, and so on. Am I right?
Yes, exactly, and not to forget the let's say the networking, the contacts you create for your company.
Yeah. But yeah, let's move. The time is flying by so fast. Let's move to the next slide, which in my opinion is the most interesting thing, is because it's really related to the networking and how you conduct yourself in Finland with Finnish potential suppliers, partners, customers, whoever, and just very good comparison if you compare to other Nordic countries. And this is like, again, expertise from Klaas, because he knows the business better there. And yeah, just your comments on this. Like, I think it's very interesting. I think it very relates to the networking side of things. If you want to meet somebody, then here are the things you should consider when speaking with a Finn.
Yeah. This picture is very characteristic. But let's start at. I was for 10 years chairman for the Finnish Norwegian Trade Association, and we made a thorough analysis of this, of the business culture and communication culture between Norway and Finland, but also the Swedish and the Danish culture came into the picture. And this is a slide that, let's say, I go backwards. The Nordic countries, the behavior in the Nordic countries is fairly similar if you look at the large picture. For example, compared to the French or the Italian or the German behavior, business behavior. But Finland is a bit different than for example, Sweden or Denmark or Norway. So this is about these lines here represent the situation when you meet the customer. You have a meeting, and in Finland maybe we are more formal than the Swedes and for example Norwegians and Danes. That is the analysis show that. And then in Finland, we are fairly strict with time. We have a bit the same kind of German time clock thing, that it's very important to be in time and have be very sharp in that. And compared to the Norwegians, that has a type of a different type of behavior there. Then meetings, it's very good to prepare the meetings, because Finns like the structure things. It's Finnish people are a bit engineering people, and let's say it's a bit it's important anyway. And then when it comes to conflicts, and in Finland we don't talk so much, but we can say yes or no if something is good or not. So it must be when you meet Finnish people, one should not be hurt if somebody says yes or no. It's they are very direct, and actually in Norway there's this bit, and Sweden they try to avoid conflicts, but Danes are a bit in between. But this is compared also to a scientist called Erin Meyer. She's I think she's American, and her studies show exactly this same kind of patterns as well. And we have actually I've talked to her and checked some things and even used her analysis. But this is important to remember that in Nordic countries are a bit slightly different, but we are fairly the same in the big picture.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. It's something I've seen with my own customers. If a Finn comes in, they really like, let's say nowadays it's an online meeting, but still they really like, for example, the structured side of things. Hey, here's today's meeting. Here are the things that I want to discuss with you. Here's the agenda that we agreed upon before the meeting, right? For example. About the conflicts, I would say just on a personal experience that it's going to be like a full conflict and people are shouting. It's more exactly disagreements. You know, Finn can say that they disagree or no, I don't like this or something like that. And then you'll have to figure out like, okay, what do they do not like exactly? Maybe it's a miscommunication, whatever, but be prepared that there could be like in real time, they could say to you that no. Compared to Sweden, what I've also noticed is that they just listen to you and let you speak, and no objections are being mentioned during the meeting. But later on, maybe in an email, there's something like, okay, I didn't understand this or that. Like, why didn't you mention it immediately? Finns do mention it immediately. On average, again, this is a generalization. Okay, Klas, let's go speak about a little bit what 1Office also can do, just in case if that's forgotten. The idea here is, again, like if we go back to the slide here, there are different ways you can enter the market. You could hire somebody, like actually under your company. You can do a joint venture. You can establish a company. You can acquire a company or seek a foreign co-ownership. And this all relates to here. So you could hire somebody. This is what we call a tax registration for a foreign company. We can register yourself as an employer. You can hire a local Finnish person who then starts to expand your market or finding those contacts for you. We can open a company, which means that either it's like with this founder from a foreign country. Also here we could put this acquiring the company, which means basically changing the owners of the company. But yeah, there's also an option to kind of just establish a branch of your existing company in Finland, which is done, but it could be considered as this organic growth thing that Klas mentioned. And it might be like a more difficult strategy because you're on your own basically. You just have to go there, start finding customers, partners, suppliers, and do your thing. So maybe the most difficult way to do it. In terms of taxation, VAT tax, value-added tax, just changed in Finland from the 1st of September. They increased it 0.5%. No, 1.5%, right, Klas?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. It has, like VAT has reduced rate for certain commodities, groceries, public transportation. So yeah, that's kind of to give it a competitive edge. So your price of the service would be better or product would be better on the market, then people would buy it more. Then what else to mention? Like importantly, corporate income tax, you have to pay no matter what. If you have a company there, that's 20%. Dividend tax is a separate thing. If you take out your profits, you also have to pay it. Although there are certain, like again, definitely what we recommend doing is like, okay, what's your plan? how you will generate the turnover, the profit, and then what's the plan of getting it out? Will you pay yourself a salary? Do you want to take out dividends and things like that? We have to evaluate the whole situation, and then we could put together like a tax plan for you. So these are generalities, but yeah, these generalities are like a framework on which to operate. And then there's employment-related taxes, pension tax, social security, unemployment tax, things like that. And these are important if you do hire somebody in Finland, or if you do run a business in Finland and you go live there and you pay a salary to yourself, then you also need to consider personal taxes in Finland, because as a person, you would then be taxed in Finland instead in your home country. But there's also a little bit of rules like when are you going to be taxed in Finland instead of your home country and so on. So again, based on your specific situation, we usually like let you know what to consider. And one final thing that's not here in terms of taxes is the personal income tax of a employee. That is progressive in Finland. So I really couldn't put you information here. Basically, each Finnish person has this personal tax bracket, and that can be renewed if things change. But yeah, based on the salary that they receive, the personal income tax is different. And yeah, that's totally our expertise. If you're interested of like learning more, actually formalizing and legalizing your business in Finland, then that's what we do. And then step 2, or even maybe before us, step 1 is contacting Class about the strategies, how to enter the market, because maybe you don't want to really legalize anything until you've looked at your business objectively with Class and realizing how do you really kind of enter the market. Because why to do the legalization if you're not ready to actually acquire the customers, do the work, what it means to actually acquiring those customers and providing the service. So yeah, it's important to speak with Class as well. And I briefly already talked about the services that we offer. I'll just add here that we also have like a virtual office, which means that all of the post that arrives from the government ends up with us. We process it, make it available for you. As a side note, a lot of things from the government are sent by post, physical letters instead of emails or like digital communication. And the second big thing is the accounting. Like when you legalize a company in Finland, you do hire somebody in Finland, you need to do payroll, you need to do accounting. So that's also our strong expertise. And there we can give you advice, proposals, things like that, just to make your company's compliance to run the way it's supposed to run according to Finnish rules. And you only have to focus on then finding customers, which is the expertise of Verde Consulting, at least on some level. So Klas, let me know, or let the people know like how you can help them in Finland, what you do exactly.
Yes, very typical case is that there is a vision and certain kind of strategy idea, and to look at Finland or also from Finland to test it out, and often these kind of cases which are not let's say long-term advisory tasks are limited. So it's a question about the market assessment to and assess also the contacts in Finland and see if the business could fly in Finland or not. It's about making a go no-go decision and then advice, for example, regarding the regulatory environment and type approvals or whatever. It could also be acquisition to make some background work around the company which you have looked at. For example, if you are planning to have a joint venture or acquire a company, it's very good to I can do that work for you and make my assessment together with you. it could also be exhibitions and when it comes to the contacts and new customers and so on. Usually it's a limited task in these questions. I have also some advisory, long-term advisory roles in companies that are a bit different than this.
Okay, interesting stuff. Definitely what I've heard, like the acquisition side of things, difficult to find a company probably who is available for acquisition, but it's one of the things that has been asked from me. So what's your approach there? Like if somebody comes to you and I want to acquire something, a company, how you approach that problem? It's not a difficult problem to solve, I assume.
Yeah, it's a common thing to of course to look at which kind of company it is and see where is the fit.
Yeah.
And where is not the fit. But sometimes that thing is that foreign company needs just a platform, and they want to have some smaller companies to be acquired or to be a joint venture partner, and that could be a good fit because it's in synergy with your business. So, but to make that assessment and to select wrongly, because if you select wrongly, if you do the wrong assessment, there are good examples of that. It could be very expensive. It also comes to testing out the relationships.
Okay. Yeah, we've reached the end. I forgot to let everybody know that you could ask questions from us. So I don't know if anybody already added some questions here or not, but this is the moment to do so now. We do have 10 minutes left. And we do have one question, which I did suspect. Is the tax. So Samuel is asking, does it apply to 25% VAT tax rate for a Finland company selling products to USA or Singapore or the local VAT rate instead of Finland? So yeah, if you sell something, if you have a Finnish company and you sell something to outside of Europe, then that is VAT exempt. So you don't add any Finnish VAT on top of that. But if you sell in Finland to a local consumer, then you do have to add that VAT on top of it. Of course, there's also rules based on things that you do sell, based on the turnover that you reached, because there was also a slide that the VAT is not obligational until you reach a 15,000 euro turnover. So by that, before that point, it's not obligational, but this applies only to selling to private people. If it's companies, then it's a different matter. Usually, if you sell to companies, they actually demand you to have a VAT number, otherwise they will not buy from you. So again, like different scenarios. Another thing to consider, if a Finnish company, if you register a company in Finland and you sell to the USA or Singapore, then what are those local rules there on your product or on your service? Maybe in the USA there is a sales tax, I know. From state to state it could differ. Is your service or product obligated to add sales tax on top of your like regular fee or not? Same about Singapore. I really cannot comment on it, but it's something you should look into. Yeah. If anybody else has any questions, then type now. There are two places to do it. There's chat and Q&A. Yeah. Samuel says, thanks Samuel, to you as well for asking this question. Klas, do you want to maybe, since there are no questions, do you want to conclude final words about this webinar, about this topic, and yeah, just final words from your end.
Yes, and thank you very much for listening, and hopefully you got something out of it, and perhaps with Dennis created a comprehensive view of the how to enter Finland and things like that. But let's say, as mentioned, the Nordic countries are fairly similar, and we have the same kind of structure. So it's fairly easy to understand the market. But the homework is very important because it's always an investment in time, investment in money, and so on. And if you have a belief in your own product that it fits for Finland, Finland could be a good country to test it. But remember what is appreciated in Finland. That is the quality, of course, the price, which is everywhere, but also the product service must be fitted for Finland. But that you can do with some design of your service or product.
And I agree. Definitely the part that you say that the Nordic countries are connected, and if you do establish something in Finland, you do have the option to maybe have a little bit easier time expanding to Sweden or some other Nordic countries, and vice versa, because you're already established yourself in one of those Nordic countries. The culture are similar, but in some way different. But again, as Klas mentioned, what flies in Sweden flies in Finland. So you could use that for your advantage. And that's also like why what I see on a personal level is that if somebody comes in with us in Sweden, in a year or two, they do ask about Finland, like, okay, I have this in Sweden now. How do I replicate it into Finland? Or again, vice versa, they started something in Finland, now they want to go to Sweden once the Finnish operation is fully functioning in their head or in their view. So yeah.
Here was a question.
There was a question.
Yeah.
Do Finnish companies need to hire local people? No, that's not required. Although you do need to have like directors for the company. Or board members, however you want to call them, and there has to be 2 of them at least. So that's a requirement. But to those board members, it's not required to pay out the salary. That being said, paying out the salary to a board member or to a director is the most tax efficient way to pay out anything from a Finnish company. So that's like a good thing to do. No. Anyway, Salmo, thanks. You're being active. That's great. Klas, thank you so much for your time, for your insights. We'll make this webinar available on YouTube. We'll try to make like short clips out of it for people to see. And yeah, everybody who registered, who watched this webinar, I'll send like a follow-up about the full recording. And yeah, if you did miss it, then you're also gonna see it. I'll send it to your email. So yeah, Klas, thank you. Thanks everybody for tuning in, and good luck with your business in Finland. Bye-bye.
Yeah, have a nice day. Bye.